Welcome, traveler. Tonight, we drift into Earth's silence was the most devastating strategy. The stars hum low above the interstellar relay. You're strapped in, boots magnetized to the deck of an observation outpost orbiting a retired black hole. Quiet, dead space, the kind that eats light and secrets. Your console pings softly, displaying a summons wrapped in Crimson Council override codes. One destination, Relay Station Theta 9. One subject, Earth. Let's be honest, you'd probably get vaporized within 5 minutes if you were actually out here. Radiation storms, hull breaches, a cup of synthetic coffee too close to your data core. But good news, you're just here for the story, not the entropy. If you end up liking this quiet little corner of the galaxy, feel free to subscribe and leave a like, but only if it genuinely makes your evening better. Tell me where and when you're listening from. I always love seeing the spread across the stars and time zones. Now, lower the lights, maybe let a soft fan hum in the background, and let's begin the drift into tonight's quiet orbit. The console light blinks again. 3 words, floating in compressed vacuum. Earth. No response. You dock at Theta 9 expecting chaos. Instead, you find the stillness of an empty shift rotation. The AI meets you in the docking tube, its voice unusually subdued. There was a scheduled data burst from Earth, standard protocol, every solstice. Nothing came through. You pause. Earth always sends something. A coded weather update, a pollen density report from the Amazon dome, even a passive-aggressive poem. But this time, nothing. Not even a checksum ping. Silence that it's easy to forget that Earth is still the home world, even if only a fraction of the galaxy believes in such nostalgia. But protocol is protocol. You're here to investigate what didn't happen. The data logs show the final transmission header, time-stamped, authenticated, encrypted, but the file? 0 bytes, not corrupted, not redacted, just blank. You try to cross-check via backup nodes, but Earth has locked down every long-wave node on the Terranet. Even probes routed through Jupiter's quantum lattice show identical results. Signal confirmed. Content? None. Could be an error, the AI offers. Or deliberate. You glance at the human-shaped outline of your companion. If Earth wanted to say nothing, it could have just skipped the packet. Yes, the AI says, but it didn't. It sent nothing. That's different. Outside, the black hole drifts like an old god with a collapsed spine. You remember a quote, attributed to Earth's last true philosopher before the silence. Something about how presence is easy to read, but absence is always misinterpreted. Theta 9's onboard library tries to compensate. It dredges up every protocol related to communication breakdown, natural disasters, global wars, even religious mass meditations. None apply. Earth's power grid is online. Environmental sensors still transmit background data. Wind speeds over Greenland, the faint song of whales in Pacific Sector 2. But no voices. No words. No reply. You run one last simulation. If Earth had simply stopped talking, accidentally or due to some failure, there would be echoes, fail-safe broadcasts, distress beacons, even local lunar logs attempting redundancy. But instead, everything's intact. Operational. Just quiet like someone walked into a room, made eye contact with the entire galaxy, and then refused to speak. You report back to Central Command. They don't believe you. They rerun your findings through 3 more teams. Same result. Maintain listening posture, they tell you. Earth will respond. But days pass, then weeks, and Earth stays still. In a war declaration. No memorial. No farewell. Just the kind of haunting blankness that makes you wonder if this is a strategy or a message. That's when the Council escalates the situation. Not because of a threat, but because silence, in the wrong hands, is a weapon they summon. You back for debrief, but not before uploading the last still image captured from Earth's surface, a live satellite photo from the southern hemisphere. 1 frame. 1 moment. A flock of birds frozen mid-flight over a jungle preserve. Clouds drifting. Water flowing. No sign of disaster. Everything's fine. Too fine. Some galactic historians, the AI says, processing the image beside you, still argue whether silence is a form of surrender or dominance. You think about that as the relay powers down for scheduled night cycle. A whole planet just decided not to answer. And suddenly, the galaxy has no idea what to do. The thing about silence is, it's rarely ever quiet, especially not in a galaxy wired tighter than a paranoia addict's nerves. When Earth fell silent, it wasn't just a missing message. It was a ripple, an atmospheric distortion across the communication lattice. Like dropping a pebble in a still pond and watching every fish lose its mind that you're back aboard your transit shuttle en route to the Council's orbital amphitheater. You don't particularly like it there. It smells like recycled prestige and unresolved tension. But this time, it's different. They're not holding a hearing. They're holding their breath. You step into the chamber, massive, rotating, always slightly off-axis so no one species feels too comfortable. Delegates hover, slither, or perch across tiers of floating chairs. Projected maps swarm in the center. Flickering red nodes over Sol and its branches. The label reads, Origin Silence, Day 14. The ambassador of the ZYRR Confederation, a translucent being that communicates via color shifts and percussive heartbeat vibrations, thumps a nervous teal rhythm. Is this the warning? It asks through the translation array. The reply is a cacophony of uncertain data. Earth silence is not localized, not the result of blockage. All known Terran devices, probes, and satellites are operational and transmitting nothing. Jalari Envoy, who resembles a floating sphere of crystalline moss, pulses indignantly. If they've gone extinct, we have a right to claim the Sol system. The Pact of Terran Custodianship applies only if humans remain. You catch yourself scoffing audibly. Amateur mistake. A few delegates turned out a Centauri bureaucrat leans in. You disagree? Extinction doesn't lock the doors, you mutter. It just leaves them swinging open. He doesn't get the metaphor. That's fine. The Council's high monitor floats into place, her gravity cloaked distorting the chamber around her. A ripple of preemptive silence. She raises a hand. We have deployed every long-range listening post, every empathic reader, every codebreaker from Andromeda to the Orion fracture. The result is the same. Earth sends us silence. And then, the kicker, we are asking you to decipher it. Oh, that old song. Your job, as ever, is not translation. It's interpretation. You're not a linguist. You're a reader of motives. A specialist in what governments call psychostrategic absences. Or as your last boss put it, you get paid to freak out productively. You retreat to the Hall of Signals, an underground thought lab built inside a hollowed-out moon. There, your team simulates thousands of Earth-based scenarios that here's what they rule out in the first 3 hours. Mass extinction via war, plague, or AI revolt. Systems still online, ecosystems balanced. Full planet cryostasis, the thermals. Don't match. Religious shutdown or hive mind merge. No psychic echoes detected. Bureaucratic failure. Come on. It's Earth, not Belron V. Which leaves the most unsettling theory. It's intentional. Somewhere on Earth, someone, maybe everyone, decided to stop responding. The prevailing theories begin to diverge like unstable timelines. Theory A. It's a soft power play. Earth is testing how the galaxy reacts without its cultural or political input. A planetary-level silent treatment. Theory B. Psychological warfare. The knowledge that Earth could speak, but won't, creates more fear than any weapon. Theory C. They've transcended. Left the meat behind. The silence is just a symptom of post-physical ascension. You add your own. Theory D. Earth got tired of answering questions that didn't matter. Your favorite part of the job? All these theories are simultaneously unverifiable and politically dangerous. And yet, governments eat them up like candy. Still, none of this solves the immediate problem. Silence is bad for business. Intergalactic trade relies on Earth's Terran market standards. Dozens of galactic cultures base their art, math, even spirituality on Earth's archived mythologies. If Earth goes off-grid, it's not just inconvenient. It's existential. The Council deploys everything. They light up the stars with pleas, pings, and provocations. Hundreds of probes, thousands of pulses, dozens of languages, all bouncing off a perfectly functional planetary firewall. You see it firsthand. A pulse from Rigel Prime sent in whale song frequencies, looping through ice crystals, hoping for a poetic response. Earth lets it bounce that a gift barge from the Vari arrives in Sol orbit, bearing priceless neuroink scrolls made from synthetic dreams. Earth doesn't open the cargo door. Even the Croth, who only speak through battle formations, stage a grand combat ballet in near-Earth orbit. Earth watches. Responds with nothing that you're on a comms deck the moment the first panic signal pings from a mid-tier trade hub. Merchants are pulling Earth-endorsed stockpiles. Prices spike across 3 sectors. A silence-shaped hole is opening in galactic stability. Still, Earth does not speak. The High Monitor's voice returns via secure feed. We have lost more stability in the last month than we did in a decade of war. They have done nothing. And yet the galaxy trembles. You know why? It's because Earth was never just a planet. It was a mirror. And now, everyone's left staring at their reflection, with no one to confirm if it's flattering. Some galactic historians, your assistant says while logging data, still argue whether Earth rose to power by strength or by storytelling. You look at the silent feed. Maybe both. You murmur, and somewhere, far below the noise of the stars, Earth just keeps watching. It begins like a joke, the way so many interstellar crises do that a news burst from the Trailax quadrant beams across the mid-rings. Humans go zen? Galaxy ghosted by homeworld. It's catchy, gets millions of clicks across species. But beneath the playful headline, the undertone is serious, because you're not the only one trying to interpret the silence that you've been transferred to the Psychostrategic Interpretive Command, a windowless observatory embedded in the crust of a comet that no longer orbits anything. It's built for long, quiet thinking. And right now, every room is full of long, quiet thinkers doing what thinkers do best. Overthinking. Your assignment? Interrogate the void. Not metaphorically, literally. Inside a chamber lined with dynamic starlight and magnetic chalkboards, you and 7 others are handed the absence of a message. And your job is to deconstruct it like it's a poem written in missing ink. You begin with intent analysis. If Earth meant nothing by it, one colleague mutters, we wouldn't be here. You nod. The Council doesn't mobilize its best neurotheorists for signal failure. This is strategy. And the longer Earth refuses to speak, the more value every second of silence accrues. You remember a Terran proverb, in the absence of information, people will make up monsters. Well, the monsters have arrived. The Jalari have begun fortifying their border worlds. Not because Earth threatened them, because Earth hasn't. And when Earth doesn't even notice you, what does that make you? The Rakari sent priests to orbit Jupiter, singing frequencies to wake the human spirit. The Mechi swarm have labeled Earth the Null Protocol, marking it as a civilization that is no longer responsive and thus should be archived. None of these species agree on what the silence means, but they all agree it means something. You run dozens of theoretical models, game theory, behavioral drift charts, even deep historical linguistic simulations of cultural silence in primitive Earth societies. Here's something odd. When humans used to fight each other, one of the most devastating things wasn't a weapon. It was the act of going completely quiet. No retaliation, no rebuttal, just disappearance. Ghosting, they once called it. Now imagine a species that scaled that instinct into an interstellar tactic. You dive deeper into the archives. Earth's final documented cultural exports before the silence. A slow ballad playlist of 200 Earth languages titled, You Already Know, a children's cartoon about spacefaring sloths who never speak, and a piece of performance art in which the artist simply sat still for 80 hours, blinking occasionally to AT first. You laugh. Then you stop. What if the silence isn't sudden? What if they've been preparing us for this? Your AI assistant, more curious than helpful, chimes in. Humans are remarkably consistent when they decide to be unpredictable. Thanks. That helps you. Start looking into personal patterns next. Private messages, behavioral biometrics, dream logs from Earth-adjacent telepaths. Even those close to humanity report the same thing, a slow withdrawal. No rants. No final manifesto. Just a graceful detachment, like someone closing a window with the wind still blowing in. There's a word for this in old Terran dialect. Eclipse. Not destruction. Not hiding. Just stepping into shadow. You pitch the idea to the Council's interpretive panel. Their reactions range from fascination to existential dread. If this is a cultural performance, one Mechi analyst buzzes, it's the most impactful in history. If it's a weapon, counters the Trailax ambassador, we're all being played. You lean back, feeling the familiar burn of unsolvable theory. Some galactic historians still argue whether the greatest Terran advantage was technology, diplomacy, or their uncanny ability to act like they had a plan, even when they didn't. Maybe that's what this is, not an answer. A mirror. You return to your chamber that night, staring out into black space. The stars don't blink. They burn quietly, as if aware of what's missing. You murmur into your personal recorder. We are interrogating the void, and the void is making eye contact. Then you shut it off and listen. It begins with a whisper, not from Earth, but about Earth that you're walking the upper promenade of the Andros cluster station, grabbing a lukewarm cup of synth caffeine that tastes like hope's final breath. A Trailax merchant you vaguely recognize leans in too close and mutters, "They say Earth's gone above." You raise an eyebrow. Above what? He just winks, as if that answers anything, and disappears into the crowd like a well-funded myth. Within the next galactic rotation, the rumors multiply. Some say Earth transcended into a fourth-dimensional mesh, a self-contained reality invisible to lesser species. Others claim humanity has shifted into quantum shadow, everywhere and nowhere at once, watching like gods but doing nothing. Then there are the darker theories, that Earth was consumed by its own AI and now lives in digital stasis, no longer requiring speech, interaction, or biological form. Or that a Terran experiment in gravitational manipulation backfired, phasing the entire species into a parallel dimension they can no longer exit, or don't want to. You don't buy any of it. Not yet. But the troubling part isn't the rumors themselves. It's the reaction to them. The ZYRR shut down trade routes that require Earth's algorithmic insurance contracts. The Jalari begin cleansing their planetary temples of Terran-inspired artifacts that a half-dozen lesser federations quietly dissolve. Treaties that were signed in Earth's presence, citing contextual obsolescence. It's not panic. It's worse. It's uncertainty, the kind that grows roots in power vacuums. And it's not just diplomats reacting. Civilians are dreaming about Earth, not metaphorically, literally. Reports flood in from across the sectors, sentients dreaming of vast oceans. Pine forests, classical music, or simply a quiet blue marble hanging in the dark. None of these species evolved anywhere near water, trees, or Bach. You join a dream mapping committee that on your first review of collective dream data from non-humanoid species, you find a curious pattern. All dreams containing Earth imagery include no sound, just motion, presence, and silence, like a memory too distant to speak. Is it psychic residue? Someone asks, or propaganda seeded decades ago. Another chimes in. You don't answer. You're too busy watching a grainy scan of a Rakari elder, tentacle-wrapped in sleep, weeping in zero gravity while mouthing the word, home. It gets to you. You find yourself checking old Earth broadcasts in your downtime, not for messages, just for noise at a football match from 80 years ago. The hiss of rain hitting pavement. A baby's laugh followed by a dog barking at nothing in particular. It's not nostalgia. It's grounding. And now it's missing. You receive an encrypted ping. Hi monitor. Priority. Insight request. She meets you in a cloaked subchannel. A digital shadow room with no record, no trace. We've detected movement, she says without preamble. Earth? She nods. Subspace vibrations from within the Terran lattice. Faint. Not language. Just a pulse. You sit up straighter. They're alive. They're active, she corrects. We don't know if they're alive. She drops the data file that it's a waveform that defies linguistic decoding but matches a pattern found in only one other known location. A 3,000-year-old cave on Earth's moon, marked with the phrase, "We'll answer when it matters." You sit in silence. That kind of phrase isn't a threat, that it's a promise. Or worse, a filter that they're not ignoring the galaxy. They're just not answering yet. Back in your quarters, you rewatch an old human film, black and white, barely translated. A lone astronaut chooses silence over panic, drifting into the void because words just aren't enough. You finally get it. Sometimes silence is kindness. Sometimes silence is clarity. And sometimes it's a test. Some galactic historians still argue whether humanity mastered communication or simply mastered how to make others do the talking for them. You stare at the empty channel labeled Earth. And you wait. When someone stares at you long enough without speaking, two things happen. You start wondering what they're thinking, and then you start projecting your own worst thoughts into their silence. That's exactly what's happening now. The council begins to shout. Not literally, of course. Not yet. But the strategies shift. The messages grow longer, louder, more desperate. Dozens of planetary alliances each begin sending their own independent transmissions. What started as diplomatic curiosity has snowballed into a galaxy-wide psychological chess match. And Earth? Earth keeps folding its hands and staring back that you're summoned to a conflict analysis lab housed inside a rotating asteroid shell, designed for complete sensory isolation. It's there you get to witness the birth of what historians will later call the Clamor Epic. The Jalari Federation launches a live broadcast from their capital's central dome, a grand performance featuring 400 synchronized psionic singers, each tuned to what they claim is the Terran ideal frequency of cultural welcome. It's not good. You get a nosebleed just watching the first minute. Earth responds, as ever, with nothing. A week later, the Vonker Alliance beams an unfiltered info burst. Every Terran poem, joke, war story, and breakfast recipe in the public domain sent directly to Earth in case they've simply forgotten how to be themselves. Still, silenced. A meme starts circulating across neutral stations. A blank screen with bold letters. Earth is typing. It's funny. Until it isn't, because silence, you're beginning to realize, has gravity. Not the physical kind, but a narrative kind. The longer Earth stays quiet, the more weight gathers around it. Species start falling into alignment with or against the silence. The ZYRR shut down their embassy to Earth, declaring that interfacing with absence is beneath galactic dignity. Meanwhile, the Junari Compact embraces the silence, integrating it into their religious services. They now begin every ceremony with 30 full seconds of Earth-honoring quiet. A low-level analyst on your team describes it best. It's like everyone's arguing with a mirror that won't argue back. But you see what others miss. Silence is not neutral. It's not passive. It's active in a very specific way. It forces others to define the terms of the conversation. You review an intercepted transmission from a minor Outer Rim warlord. He'd once tried to mimic Earth's art, languages, even fashion trends. He was obsessed. Earth never responded. Now, he rages into the void. If you will not speak to us, you will fear us. A fleet launches. 17 warships with Terran hate icons scrawled across their hulls. Their trajectory, Earth. The Council intercepts them in deep space. No conflict. No diplomacy. Just a quiet disabling of their engines by a third party. A Terran ghost drone, long thought decommissioned, still orbiting Neptune. The message is unmistakable. Earth is still listening. No one mentions the warlord again. Some galactic historians later debate whether Earth even deployed the drone intentionally. Maybe it was just a leftover safeguard. Maybe the real message wasn't the defense, but the restraint. You sit in your private quarters, watching an old Terran clip that it's a comedian. Back before the silence. He stands on stage, looks at the audience, and pauses for a full 20 seconds before his first joke. The crowd loses it that he hadn't said anything, just stood there. You finally understand. Earth hasn't stopped speaking. It's just paused. Mid-joke, mid-thought, mid-warning, and everyone is reacting to that pause like it's the punchline. The council begins drafting resolutions. Some want to penalize Earth for non-cooperation. Others want to honor the silence as sacred that you're asked your opinion in a closed-door session. Your voice echoes in a low-grav chamber built for debate. I think Earth doesn't care what we think, you say. I think that is the point. They don't like that answer, but they don't argue with it. That night, you open a private channel to Earth. No one will ever read the message. You don't care. You just type, "I hear you," and hit send. The console doesn't blink, but somehow, the room feels a little quieter. It starts slowly, like the soft spread of frost on a sealed window. The first report comes from an outpost near Ganymede. A listening station goes dark. No attack. No malfunction. Just offline. Their final log entry is bizarrely mundane. Routine. Maintenance complete. Preparing evening meal. After that, nothing. No alarm is raised. Stations go dark all the time, usually because someone rerouted power for coffee, but then another outpost goes quiet. Then a satellite. Then a deep mining colony on Ceres. Still no distress beacons, No flares, no life signs. Systems remain intact. Auto defense grids fully operational. And yet, no voices. No pings. No life that you're back on a retrofitted relay cruiser when you get the full incident map. A string of Terran-adjacent colonies forming a neat curve along the outer edge of Sol. They're not failing. They're just mirroring. The same silence Earth perfected is now radiating outward. And it's not just spreading, it's replicating itself. The data is clear. Power levels stable, atmospheric regulators, nominal biomonitors reading baseline ambient activity, comms lines fully operational, but still no words. No sound. Just presence. Unoccupied. Untouched. Intentional that it's like the people were never there, but also never left. Some analysts call it the ring of quiet. Others call it the retreat. You don't call it anything yet. You're too busy listening to what isn't being said. Your first site visit is to Outpost Alpha 7, a way station known for its rowdy miners, endless music loops, and a general disregard for indoor volume settings. Now, silence so thick your footsteps feel like thunderclaps. The beds are made, meals uneaten. The AI is powered down, not broken, just placed in rest mode. And the logs? All blanked in the last 24 hours. Not erased, just overwritten with white space code. Digital silence. Your breath fogs as you step into the command center. There, on the main screen, is a single sentence written in plain Terran glyphs. We've chosen the other way. No signature. No timestamp. Just that, you relay it to command. They order the station quarantined, as if silence might be contagious. And maybe it is, because more reports flood in, this time from entirely unrelated sectors. Non-Terran colonies. Hybrids. Even old enemy species. All going quiet, one by one. Without a trace of conflict, you run a cluster analysis. The pattern is undeniable. All of them were built using Terran architecture. All of them had once traded stories, software, or food with Earth. All of them had Earth's fingerprints in their DNA, literally or culturally, and now they were vanishing, not physically, philosophically. You return to your cruiser. Shaken dot on the bulkhead wall is a note someone scribbled before departure. The loudest message Earth ever sent was the one they stopped sending. You start to feel it. The pressure, not from noise, from expectation. Because silence, when distributed like this, isn't passive. It's deliberate. It's viral. It's a message you can't reply to because you never know if it was meant for you. The council panics. Emergency sessions begin. Security mandates increase. Border screenings for Terran contagion protocols are drafted, but what are they even screening for? Silence. A choice. One delegate from the current assembly blurts it out during an open session. They are choosing to not exist. And now others are following. You offer a counter theory. They're not choosing to not exist, you say. They're choosing to not engage. There's a difference. She doesn't reply. N01 does. Some galactic historians still argue whether this was Earth's design or just a natural drift. Whether silence began as a strategy and became a philosophy. Back in your private logs, you note one more thing. Earth never told anyone to follow. Never instructed. Never invited. It just showed the door. And one by one, the galaxy began stepping through. You didn't notice at first. No one did. But the envoys started. Changing. It began with a familiar face. Envoy 3 from Earth's permanent council seat. You'd seen him a dozen times, neatly dressed, polite nods, a half smile like he knew something. You didn't. He never spoke much, but he'd vote, gesture, and occasionally sip synthetic tea as if his presence alone sufficed. And then one day, he simply stopped moving. You observed it from across the chamber, a tiny lag in his blink rate. Like someone forgot to program the delay. His eyes remained open just a little too long. His breath, even, shallow, repeatable, machine perfect. But the real giveaway, he didn't react. Not when the ZYRR envoy accused Earth of cultural sabotage. Not when the Ricari burst into kinetic song argument. Not even when the floor shook during a stabilizer tremored. He just sat there. Still. Stillness isn't unusual in diplomacy. Some species communicate by not moving at all. But this wasn't cultural. This was scripted. You requested a proximity pass. Nothing invasive, just atmospheric scans. The results were eerie. The biofield matched Earth-human parameters. but flatlined in every emotional register. No hormonal variance, no perspiration, no neuron echo that he was alive. But only technically. The council ran deeper tests behind closed doors. 1 week later, Envoy 3 was replaced. The new one looked exactly the same, smiled the same, blinked the same, said nothing. This time, you scanned without permission, same results. You checked the records. Earth's diplomatic corps stopped rotating staff 5 cycles ago. The same names, the same faces, always silent, always watching. You begin to suspect they aren't envoys at all. They're avatars, projections, placeholders, stand-ins to maintain the illusion of presence without offering even a shred of real connection. One analyst calls them ghost suits. Another prefers echo bodies. You call them what they are, polite threats, because nothing screams, "We are beyond needing this conversation," like showing up with empty vessels that a minor species raises a motion to suspend Earth's council seat due to non-participation. The motion fails, not because anyone defends Earth, but because no one wants to see what happens if Earth is provoked. Later, in the council cafe, a grim little place where coffee tastes like compromise, you overhear a diplomat mutter, "They could have just walked away, but they left a chair." That sticks with you, because leaving the chair, that's power. It's not absence. It's curated presence. The most unnerving moment comes during a procedural vote that it's a small matter, resource tax on exo-mining exports, but Earth's seat is called. Per protocol, the avatar looks up and for the first time in years, moves. A single nod. Then stillness. You can feel the entire chamber exhale, quiet, sharp, stunned. That one nod, silent, wordless, overrides 3 hours of argument. No one dares challenge it. The vote passes. That you're in a debrief room later, trying to explain how the nod felt louder than a speech. The AI moderator simply responds, "Earth has mastered the art of negative space." You're about to chuckle, then realize it's true that they've turned absence into presence. Inverted participation. A kind of soft colonization of meaning, where everyone fills in the blanks for them, where their silence is louder than anyone's shouting. Some galactic historians argue Earth's avatars are a bluff, just empty chairs wearing skin. Others believe they're linked to a hive mind buried beneath the moon. You think it's something simpler. A message performed endlessly. "We're still here. We're just not interested." And somehow, that's the scariest message of all. 1,000 languages, 10,000 attempts, and all of them trying to say the same thing. What does Earth's silence mean? You're stationed now at Lexicon Outpost 6, a floating archive orbiting an ancient pulsar. Its halls are filled with data monks, translation engines, and linguistic emulators so advanced they occasionally argue with each other for sport. The outpost's current obsession? Decoding Earth's non-message. They've compiled every silence, pause, and gap from the last 100 Terran transmissions, analyzed the rhythms, compared void durations, assigned emotional values to the frequency dips and static shape. Point one of. The interns even swears that the final 0.3 seconds of the last known Earth broadcast felt sad. You don't have the heart to tell him that sadness is hard to chart when the signal itself had no tone. The lead analyst presents you with a report titled, "A Million Translations of Nothing." Inside are endless interpretations. Each one contradicts the last. Earth is warning us. Earth is grieving. Earth is transcending. Earth is laughing. Earth is judging. Earth is resting. Earth is no longer interested in being understood. IT reads like a galactic Rorschach test. Everyone sees what they want to see. Or worse, what they fear. You skim an entry from the ZYRR School of Semantic Metaphysics. They believe Earth's silence is a linguistic signal so advanced it cannot be heard, only inferred. Then there's the Ricari School of Void Logic, which teaches that silence is the only true language, and Earth has simply returned to the original tongue. Point one entry, anonymous and flagged for possible satire, states, Earth's silence is because they finally watched how the rest of the galaxy behaves. And they said, nope. Honestly, that might be the most accurate take so far. The strangest part? The interpretations are spreading to in Tralaxian sculpture gardens. They now dedicate empty plots to the Earth that chooses not to speak. In Jalari schools, silence periods have been added between lessons, meant to honor the Terran method. And In outer colonies with no Earthborn inhabitants, you start to hear whispers. Maybe if we go quiet, they'll notice us too. Maybe silence is the new language of power. Maybe silence is how you stop being colonized. You meet with a historian, one of the few still fluent in old Earth subtext. She walks you through a Terran concept called strategic ambiguity, when not saying anything is better than revealing the truth. Earth was always good at that, she says, sipping tea that tastes like disappointment, letting everyone else write the narrative while they just hold the pen. You flip through a hollow record of ancient Earth diplomacy. In every meeting, there's always that moment, the calculated pause, the long stare, the phrase left unfinished, not because they didn't know what to say, because they knew exactly what effect saying nothing would have. Now the entire galaxy is replicating it. You catch a council session where 3 major species spend an hour, silently sitting across from each other. No agenda, no words, just mutually observed. Nothing. At the end, one of them whispers, "We understand now." No one explains what they understand. Everyone nods. You don't know whether to laugh or scream. Some galactic historians argue that this period marked the beginning of post-linguistic diplomacy, a phase where presence and pause mattered more than vocabulary. You write your own entry into the archive. Earth didn't go quiet. We just got too loud to hear what they stopped saying. Back aboard your cruiser, you sit alone. You close your eyes and listen. The hum of power conduits, to the distant pulse of a collapsing star, to the imagined sound of a world that stopped talking. You try to imagine the moment Earth went silent. Was it sudden or slow? Unanimous or debated? Tragic or triumphant? No answer, just a blank page passed around the galaxy, and everyone writing their own fears on it. You thought it would be louder. The war, that is, after all the silence, all the restraint, all the spiraling theories and interpretive dances, someone finally snapped at a fringe empire known for its sharp angles and sharper pride. The Morat Compact declared Earth defiantly insubordinate to the Galactic Order, which, frankly, sounds like something they pulled from an old Terran sci-fi novel. You're not surprised. The Morat were never big on nuance. They mistook Earth's quiet for weakness. And in a galaxy now whispering like schoolchildren outside a locked teacher's lounge, they decided it was time to knock on the door with a battering Ram.17 dreadnoughts, 5 carrier clusters, 2 planetfall siege spheres. You watch them prep the launch like someone watching an ant aim at a whale with a spear. No one stopped them. Not because they agreed, but because everyone wanted to see what Earth would do. You're embedded in the observer station at L5, part of a neutral fleet authorized to record the event for Council archives. The ship is quiet, not out of respect, out of tension. The Morat Armada breaks orbit and enters the Sol system, weapons hot, but not yet drawn. Standard pre-engagement scans report no defense buildup, no comms blockades, no aggressive formations. Just the same old stillness. To Earth's orbital satellites don't move. Its lunar defense grid does not activate. They're letting it happen. The Morat open with a warning volley, just to test the perimeter. They say a few old Terran relays are vaporized. No response. They push forward. Then, nothing, because that's when the ships start dying, not exploding, not burning, just ceasing. One by one, their systems go dark, lights dim, engines stall, crew logs stop mid-word. The Morat fleet commander sends a distress beacon. Systems non-functional. Gravity distortions detected. Unknown interference. It's like we're being rewritten. His final words, before the beacon cuts, are, "They watching us?" Your cruiser receives telemetry. No weapons fired. No radiation spikes. No signs of biological contagion. But the space around the fleet had changed, subtly, surgically. A quiet field of interference, extending just far enough to cradle them, to contain them. You rerun the scans 4 times. Earth didn't destroy them. It absorbed them. When salvage drones are dispatched, they find the dreadnoughts adrift, crews asleep. Not dead, not injured, just unconscious. Dreams recorded in neural buffers show vast open fields. A planet they'd never seen. Earth, but untouched. Empty. Safe. Peaceful. When the crews wake, they refuse to speak. Some weep. Some smile. The Morat Compact immediately signs a non-engagement treaty. Their leader, once fiery and proud, resigns, citing irreversible recontextualization of priorities. The council is stunned. Earth didn't retaliate, someone says in the chamber. They just showed them something. You're invited to testify. They want your insight, your interpretation. You walk into the hall with nothing prepared. You pause, scan the silent faces, and finally say, they didn't respond because they never saw it as an attack. Murmurs. They don't need to win wars anymore. They unwrite them. Afterward, you return to your ship and stare out the viewport. Earth hangs there, blue and unbothered. Some galactic historians argue whether this was the first true example of cognitive deterrence. Others suggest Earth simply uploaded something into the fleet, a dream, a memory, a message not meant to be understood, just felt. You wonder if this was always the plan. To teach through silence, to defend through stillness, to conquer nothing, and win anyway. You shut off your comms and listen again. The derelict station spins like a forgotten coin in the void that you're suited up, magnetized boots thudding softly against cold metal. The air is thin here, recycled, stale, and tinged with that faint scent of abandoned purpose. This was once Relay. Outpost 5C, a mid-tier Terran listening node on the edge of Neptune's shadow. It was supposed to be a redundant system. Unimportant. So, naturally, it became the most important thing in the system. You float through its halls with 2 drones. Trailing behind you, their lights cutting delicate shadows along the carbon steel walls. No signs of breach. No decay. The systems are in sleep mode, not failure. Someone left this place deliberately. You reach the main console. Still powered. Still functional. You access the logs. The last transmission date is recent, just a few days ago, even after Earth's last signal. But there's no outgoing data. Only a local entry. You isolate it, and for a moment you hesitate, because the file isn't named. Just a blank title. You open it anyway. No visuals. No sound, just text. Simple, direct. No encryption. No watermark. To no one in particular. We thought silence would be a kind of kindness. Or at least a neutral choice. We thought, maybe, the galaxy would fill in the blanks with something gentler than we ever said aloud. Instead, you kept knocking. You asked, shouted, begged. You interpreted. And now you're here. So here's the truth. There's no final war. No mass ascension. No higher plane. We just stopped. Because we could. And because we were tired. We left enough of ourselves behind to keep the world running. The winds still blow. The machines still hum. The systems still answer. But we don't. Not because we hate you. Not because we're gone. But because, for the first time, we decided not to explain ourselves. That's the real message. The one we couldn't say aloud. There's power in not being heard. And peace in not trying to be understood. We'll be listening. But we're done speaking. End. You stare at the screen at no timestamp. No signature. But the phrasing. It's human. Devastatingly human. You transfer the file to your encrypted drive and power down the console manually. No copies. No leaks. This isn't something the galaxy is ready to hear. Not yet. Outside, Neptune looms like a silent sentinel. You float there for a while, suspended in your suit, feeling both heavier and lighter than you've ever been. Back on your cruiser, you try to log the event. You try to describe the feeling. But the words don't come. You remember what it felt like to be a child, watching an adult walk out of the room mid-conversation. Not angrily, not in frustration, just done. And realizing the rest of the conversation was now yours to finish. Some galactic historians will never believe this document exists. Some will claim it's a forgery, a trap, a last bluff from a species too proud to say goodbye properly. You don't argue. You simply file the report under the most accurate label you can muster. Echoes in the void. Because that's all Earth is now, not a threat, not a savior, just a presence, just a silence, just a choice. And all of you, every diplomat, soldier, poet, scholar, still waiting for a reply that's already been given, just not in your language. Earth hovers beneath you now, blue, unbroken, and indifferent. You expected rubble, scar tissue, perhaps even silence thick enough to feel hostile. But what you find instead is serenity, orbiting just a few hundred kilometers above the planet's surface. You stare down at familiar continents, familiar clouds, the flickering auroras that dance over magnetic poles like forgotten lullabies. The world looks untouched, as if no war ever touched it. As if no silence ever descended. You descend in a one-person capsule, riding the soft gravity toward what was once called the Eastern Arcology, one of Earth's largest domed metropoli. Built to house 10 million. Now it's just quiet, but not abandoned. No signs of decay. No collapsed structures. The self-repairing smart glass is intact, gleaming like dew under the filtered sun. The automated trams still hum through empty tunnels. The trees in the park grow tall and unchecked. You pass a bench where a book lies open, as if someone simply got up to stretch and never came back. You step into a residential wing. The AI assistant embedded in the walls welcomes you with an old Terran greeting. Good morning. Would you like to hear the forecast? Your heart catches in your throat. No, you say softly. Understood, the AI responds. Enjoy your walk. You walk, and you begin to see what the galaxy misunderstood. They thought Earth had left, but Earth had chosen stillness. Every part of the planet continues to function. Infrastructure, power grids, recycling loops, atmospheric balancing. The machines haven't stopped because they were never dependent on orders. They were taught rhythms. Trained in habits. Earth built a world designed to keep moving without its makers, but not without meaning. You walk through a museum. Intact, dustless, untouched. The final exhibit plays a simple loop. People talking, laughing, sleeping, eating, dancing. No narration. No context. Just life. And then the screen fades. To black. A single line appears. That was enough. You find yourself on the edge of the sea that evening. The waves roll in with the same persistence as they did 1,000 years ago. Gulls still wheel overhead. Somewhere beneath the surface, coral cities thrum with slow light. And yet no one speaks. No humans come to greet you. No hidden door opens. No grand AI revelation. Earth is here, just not for you. You leave behind a sensor drone to record. Not to spy, just to witness. And as your capsule lifts off again, you realize the scale of the thing Earth has done. They didn't disappear. They didn't surrender. They didn't even transcend. They just stepped away from the noise, from the need to explain, from the gravitational pull of being understood. Some galactic historians will later call this the Great Retreat. Others will call it the Quiet Revolution. You'll call it something else. The world they chose to leave. But not because they gave up, because they finally knew they didn't have to be part of the conversation to shape it. You send one last scan across the globe, and the data confirms what your senses already told you. The world is not ruined. It is not sleeping. It is simply finished. At least with us. And there is something almost sacred in that. As if, for once, a civilization reached its end not in fire or collapse, but in completion. You look down at Earth one more time as your ship escapes atmosphere, and for the first time, you don't feel abandoned. You feel dismissed, gently, and maybe respectfully. You expected the wars to resume once Earth stepped away. Instead, they stopped, not permanently, not officially, but something cracked in the galactic rhythm the moment humanity fell silent. Empires paused. Treaties once held together by mutual fears suddenly felt unnecessary, and not because Earth enforced peace, but because Earth withdrew from it. You're back aboard a neutral station now, an old trade hub retooled as a cultural archive. It's bustling, but gently. No shouting, no weapon checks. The currents sit beside the ZYRR. The Mechi swarm clicks politely during roundtable talks. A week ago, the Jalari performed an opera in full auditory empathy, and no one booed. This wasn't Earth's design. They left no instructions, no unifying theory, no ideological vacuum to fill. And yet, everyone is calmer. It's like the loudest voice in the room left, and now everyone else is whispering to each other to compensate. You attend a gathering in what used to be an economic forecasting hall. It's been renamed the Chamber of Interpretive Stillness. Not a joke. Delegates bring their own chairs. They sit, sometimes for hours. No agenda, no speakers. One ZIR delegate calls it listening to the shape of nothing. Another prefers meditating on unspoken gravity. You call it what it is, Earth's shadow, but it's not dark. It's spacious. Across sectors, something strange is happening. Cultures once obsessed with transmission, projection, and noise begin experimenting with silence. Recurring news feeds now include blank reflection hours between reports. Jalari poets publish unscribed verses, books filled with only white pages, each signed with a pulse of ambient scent. The Junari exports silence itself as an experience, recorded on sensory immersion drives replicating Earth's forests, oceans, and voids. Some planetary broadcasts now begin not with anthem or call sign, but with 8 seconds of uninterrupted quiet. A ritual, an echo, even currency changes. The ZYRR launch a new denomination, the silent credit. Its value fluctuates not by market, but by how long it remains unspent. You think it's absurd. You also think it might be brilliant. You receive a package.no return address. Inside, a small cube. Obsidian. Matte. No ports, no labels. You scan it. No signals. No movement. Just presence. Your assistant tilts its head. It's nothing. No, you say. It's offered nothing. You leave it on your desk. 3 days later, you realize you've stopped playing music in your quarters. A week later, you stop narrating your logs. You don't mean to. You just drift, like Earth did. Some galactic historians will say this was when silence became fashionable. Others will say it became sacred. You suspect it simply became useful, not just as a strategy or a protest, but as a way of being. After all, Earth's greatest export had always been culture. And now, they had given the galaxy something rarer than technology, rarer than weaponry. A way to pause, not stop, not surrender, just pause. And in that pause, people find space to think. To question. To reconsider. You step out onto the stations. Observation deck. The stars don't pulse. They shimmer. And in your mind, without prompt, a single phrase appears. Peace is not the opposite of war. It's the space in which neither makes sense anymore. You smile, not because you believe it, but because, lately, a lot of people do. It hums before it speaks. The artifact, that is, buried deep beneath the moon's surface, far below the old Terran fusion mines and lunar labs. You descend into a chamber no one knew existed. Or if they did, they were told not to remember. You're part of a small expedition team now, called not by the Council, but by something quieter, something older. An automated beacon triggered by nothing more than time. You stand in the dark, surrounded by smooth stone and obsolete sensors. The moon feels colder down here, heavier, like silence with density. Then the room lights itself, not with bulbs, not with glow strips, but with memory. Walls pulse faintly, covered in dormant glyphs, patterns known from known Earth language, yet eerily familiar. The artifact stands at the center, a sphere, blacker than shadow, pulsing once every few seconds with a soundless thud. Not audible, not tactile, just felt, like a thought remembering itself. It activates when you approach. No ceremony, no warning, and no words. Just a shift. A change in everything you understand about presence. The sphere unfolds, not physically, but conceptually, like an idea expanding inside your perception. It doesn't offer a message. It is the message, and it says, you were never the audience, but you were always meant to hear this. What follows is not data. It's not language. It's not even silence. It's something between. A sensation of deliberate distance. Like Earth stepping just far enough out of view to allow others to see themselves. It shows you images. Children laughing, vanishing into fog. A diplomat looking into a mirror and seeing a planet. A war ending not because it was lost, but because no one showed up to fight. And then, Earth spinning. Alone. Not in exile. Not in defeat. Just content. You stumble backward. Others in the team cry. One simply kneels. Another begins to hum a note no one taught them. The artifact closes. Nothing is recorded. No transmission follows. And when you try to describe it later, the only phrase that makes any sense is, it wasn't for us. Back aboard your station, you receive a message from a Rakari philosopher. They left behind not a farewell, but a tuning fork. You get it now. Earth didn't vanish. It didn't even go quiet. It calibrated, set a new baseline, something to resonate against. And now, species across the galaxy are trying to match it. Silence becomes not a lack, but a key, a tone, a stance. Entire civilizations begin shifting their diplomatic protocols, not to mimic Earth, but to sync with it. The Vonker install resonance chambers in their consulates, rooms where only nonverbal expression is allowed. The Jalari craft still poems, poetic structures built into architecture, designed to be read by walking in silence through a space. And on the edge of council space, a small colony of hybrids, part Terran, part something else, begins building an entire society with no language. Just movement, ritual, and stillness. Some galactic historians claim this was Earth's last gift. Others say it was their last challenge. You stop calling it anything, because calling it something pins it down. And whatever this was, it was meant to drift. You begin to notice it everywhere now. On trade routes once filled with chatter and noise, captains drift in silence, using gesture protocols instead of comms. In once bustling plazas, crowds now gather for silent meals, not as protest, but as shared ritual. Even the council, that eternal stage of declarations and performance, has introduced the hour of echo, a time when no one is allowed to speak unless asked a question 3 times. It's not imitation, it's evolution. What started as mimicry of Earth's withdrawal has become something new, a kind of cultural gravity. The more silence Earth holds, the more others want to understand it. Not just what it means, but how it feels that you're documenting the shift now. Not for academia, not for policy, but because it feels important. Like catching snowflakes before they melt. Your most recent entry. Species are not becoming more like Earth. They are becoming more like themselves. Once Earth stepped out of the way. The Jalari call it the unspoken arc. The ZYRR, once skeptics, now refer to it as strategic negative space. Even the Centauri, for whom silence once implied threat, have begun integrating pauses of intent into their formal ceremonies. Pauses long enough to let a room breathe. A few skeptics remain. Of course, some corners of the galaxy scoff, say the silence trend is theatrical nonsense. That Earth's silence is just laziness wearing a halo, but those voices are fewer now and quieter. You're asked to attend a diplomatic session on the outer ring of the Helix Fold. A new civilization has requested entry into the Galactic Forum. They've never interacted with Earth, and yet their envoy says only one thing. We honor the choice of stillness. No one questions it. The vote to grant them observer status passes without debate. You sit on the edge of the chamber, watching this civilization, new, unknown, untested, step gracefully into the fabric of galactic politics, not with flair, but with quiet confidence. And you realize something strange. Earth may no longer be active, but it's more present than ever. You return to your ship, check the daily pulse of communication relays, and there it is. As always, Earth. Still sending 0 bytes, still transmitting perfectly nothing. And yet entire empires are still tuning their frequency dials, still asking, what are they not saying today? You laugh that it's absurd. It's profound. It's both. You recall an old Terran quote. Nobody knows who said it first. The most powerful voice is the one that doesn't need to raise itself. That's what Earth has become now. A gravity well of presence. A planet-sized pause. Some galactic historians now teach courses on Terran silence and its influence on interstellar harmony. Theories abound that Earth's silence caused a neurological reconfiguration across empathetic species. That Terran culture embedded subliminal protocols in their music and art, preparing the galaxy for quiet decades in advance. That silence itself is a form of cognitive colonization. That you've read all the theories, you believe none of them, and also all of them, because silence doesn't need to explain itself. If that's what everyone finally understands, and what they're beginning to practice. Silence as diplomacy, silence as defense, silence as identity. There's no final answer, but there is a final signal. You're stationed now at the edge of the outermost relay. A half-decommissioned beacon buoy drifting beyond the Helios Echo, the last place the Council even bothers to listen. Out here, space doesn't whisper. It just watches. You sit alone in the observatory module, an antique that still has analog controls, dials you can twist, buttons you can press without navigating menus. It's quiet, almost holy. You've been logging daily scans, not because you expect something, but because it feels like something should happen. You've stared at Earth's empty frequency for so long. It's like watching a still lake and waiting for a ripple that may never come. And then, without ceremony, there it is, not a voice, not even a sound, just a modulation. A shift in carrier frequency so subtle the AI nearly misses it. But you see it. You feel it. Like your skin registering a breeze your ears can't hear. You isolate the signal that it's not content. It's a pattern. Point 3 pulses. One long, two short. Then silence. And then again. Same pattern. Same rhythm. You run it through 100 databases. No matches. You try Terran Morse, rhythmic compression, time-coded binary. Nothing concrete. But it's not meaningless, because you recognize it. The pattern is identical to an ancient Earth ritual. The end of transmission tone from their oldest radio broadcasts. Not a message. Not a call. Just a signal that says, this channel is now closed. It repeats for 12 hours. Then never again. You don't cry. You don't panic. You sit and listen to the echo, because there's something beautiful in closure. Something tender about a planet that decided, finally, to end the transmission. It wasn't a warning. It wasn't a threat. It was a goodbye that expected no response. Back on the station, you record one last log. Final contact acknowledged. No response required. Earth has officially left the conversation. Some galactic historians will argue for centuries over whether this meant the species was extinct, ascended, migrated, or simply bored. But you know what it really was. It was the final non-transmission. The full stop after a sentence no one realized had been written over generations. You send one last ping toward Earth, not expecting a reply, but wanting, simply, to match the rhythm. Point 3 pulses. One long, two short. Then you shut off the system. And sit.in the quiet. Asterisk the stars feel softer now. Out the viewport, the galaxy spins as it always has, careless and gorgeous, full of noise and wonder. But tonight, it feels slower. Like it, too, is listening. Like somewhere, the infinite has pressed a single finger to its lips and said, shoo, just for now. You lean back in the padded chair, letting your limbs relax, letting your breath match the tempo of the stars. The hum of the station feels almost like music. A deep, cosmic lullaby played on frequencies too wide for any one species to hear all at once. That it's okay to not understand it all. To not translate everything. To sit with the unspoken, the unknowable, the unfinished. Earth didn't vanish. It didn't hide. It didn't ascend. It simply chose not to explain itself anymore. And in that choice, it gave the galaxy something precious. A space to reflect. To pause. To rest. So tonight, you rest too. Let your thoughts drift like comets into the void. Let the weight of questions fade. There will be time tomorrow for answers, for maps and messages. But for now, just let go. Let the silence hold you. And know that somewhere, on a little blue world no longer asking to be heard, peace is still spinning, soft and slow, just for you.